Well, it's taken me quite a long time, but I've finally checked out the modern trilogy of The Planet of the Apes, and I would love to talk about it. Hi, my name's Stu and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. Now, I've decided to just combine all three of these films, this modern trilogy. I don't really see a point of discussing them individually because I feel that everything I want to say about them generally applies to all three films. I might single out one for this or the other reason, but generally speaking, I see them as one compact thing. I also did actually watch them sort of back to back, so in my mind they are kind of just, you know, one film really, and I'm really excited to talk about it because I really missed that in the cinemas. I kept hearing that these films are great every time a new one came out and people were raving about them. I'm like, yeah, I really want to see them. And I was never too interested. I mean, I like the concept of Planet of the Apes and it's a cool thing to think about also, you know, as a sort of mirror held up to our society. But I never really got into it that much. It's just one of these franchises that never quite, you know, piqued my interest enough. But I heard so much about it, it was available on a streaming service, I was like, okay, I don't have an excuse anymore, I want something interesting to watch, so I'll do that. If you're not sure which films I'm actually covering with this video here, I'm talking about 2011's Rise of the Planet of the Apes, 2014's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and then 2017's War for the Planet of the Apes. I hope I got those titles right. If not, I will have corrected myself here. Anyway, maybe I switched to first two. Never mind, that's what editing is for. And it's, you know, if I make mistakes, that's fine, that's life. Anyway, so yes. So these films are actually quite a while back, and that is one of the fascinating things. I will come back to that later because I feel that you actually cannot tell. As you can imagine, there's a lot of CGI involved in this films compared to the films that came out in the 70s. There's not a lot of just practical people in suits here, etc. It's actually a lot of CGI, and that is something I do definitely want to touch upon a bit later. But know this, that if you're like, oh, 2011, you know, the CGI might be bad, if you're one of those people, I feel that I can put you at ease, right? But I'll talk about the CGI a bit later. If you're not familiar with the story, let's talk about it. What is this about? Now, as I said, I'm not really a big fan of the franchise, so I can't really tell you about comparisons, whether this is really a completely new version of the story, whether it's just sort of a remake of how it was done in the 70s. I can't tell you that much. In this case anyway, what happens here is that a scientist who is trying to develop a cure for Alzheimer's, he's played by James Franco, he is testing a new type of drug on monkeys, and to shorten it a bit, discovers that this not only, you know, prevents deterioration of the brain, it actually enhances intelligence. So he's got this monkey. The project gets shut down, etc, etc, but he's supposed to dispose of this ape, but decides not to, actually takes him back home with him and actually raises him, right? So this is Caesar. You might have heard of Caesar. He's played by Andy Serkis in these films. And so Caesar, you know, he learns sign language, and you can tell he's not just your regular ape that you see in the zoo. I mean, they're already intelligent, he's a lot more intelligent. Then some things happen because he does behind the scenes, he tests out this drug on his father. It actually works. He goes back to his company and they're like, oh great, well, we'll start doing this. And then they start testing on more apes and all this happens. There's an incident. He has to give away Caesar. He's put in a sort of animal shelter where they've got a lot of apes, including even a gorilla and an orangutan. And we have Caesar who's taken out of his, you know, home, and he's now with these other apes, and he sort of realizes, you know, because of his higher intelligence, what's happening here to us, it's unjust, and he makes them not only more intelligent, he somehow manages to get some of that medicine to share with the other apes. They also become more intelligent, they break out, and then, you know, they have, this is a big sideline that is particularly important for the second and third part. This disease is developed, it comes from the apes, they are immune to it, and it really pretty much gets rid of a large part of society. So that's more or less how the first part ends. This group of apes, they break out. At the same time, humanity is infected, and this disease spreads and wipes out pretty much the whole planet. And then in parts 2 and 3, it's about how the remaining or immune human society and the new ape society, how they live together. That's the basic thing, right? So the second part is a lot about how the apes within themselves, their society, how that works. And the third one in particular is about how they interact with the humans. But the second part also has a lot of conflict. So that's more or less, I'll tell you about the story. So we've got, these apes that develop intelligence, their society, how they get along, and how they get along with human society. And as I told you, this story is also about holding up a mirror to us. How do we act and how do we treat things and other animals and people, etc. Yeah, that's the main gist of it. And it sounds quite simple, but what I really like about these stories is that they manage somehow to not really... You do have certain scenes, of course, where you have a really clear-cut good guy and a bad guy, but a lot of the time it's sort of really, there is no good and no bad guy. We see that every society is complicated. Even the ape society is not, clear-cut. You would think that they're kind of always, all of them, the good guys, because obviously they were held in captivity and all these kind of things. But there are a lot of things here, especially as their society develops and people get involved there, develop their own ideas about what ape society should be and how they should treat humans. And it goes from there, and that's what I really like. And this dynamic keeps going back and forth. There are no good guys, there are no bad guys. It keeps switching. I mean, at least not good guys all the time and bad guys all the time. You've just got people trying to do the right thing on either side, and we see them succeeding but also failing. And I really like that. It's really great. And what makes this work so well is the good CGI. I already talked about that. It's actually phenomenal. While, yes, of course, the 2011 one is the weakest because it's the oldest one, it's still, for that time, the CGI, it's fascinating just to watch it and see how good it is, because it's really mesmerizing. And just as it continues, I was sitting there going, wow, this is among some of the best CGI work I've seen. Interestingly, these were not the most expensive films of all time. Actually, they were, comparatively to today's films, rather cheap, let's call it. Just showing that if you focus on something, the most important element of your film, which in this case is obviously how the apes look and are designed and how natural it all feels in the world, that is such an important aspect of it, because you forget that you're watching things that don't actually exist, and especially Caesar and the Serkis. I mean, he is mentioned a lot, of course, for Gollum, which I love him for, but he's also mentioned a lot for his role as Caesar in these films, and I absolutely agree, because you do empathise with all his difficult decisions that he makes as a leader of this apes society and the situations he's thrust into. And it's just an overall great performance, not just by him, a lot of other people involved as well. But I do need to single him out as not only the main character, but just our main focus of the story and a lot of situations. We've got incredible music by Michael Giacchino on the second and third part, not in the first part. But there are also some great themes here that really just weave throughout the whole film that really, they feel very unique. So that is something that always stands out to me if I watch a film and the score feels very unique, and that is definitely the case here. So that really helps everything along as well. And just the stories, they're really solid stories. I don't have a favourite part right now. I would say the first one is the weakest, but that's more owed to it's the beginning of the story and it's all in our modern, current day, where they're just starting out and all these things. So just by that standard, the second and third part are more interesting because it's a futuristic dystopian society that, is obviously very fresh and exciting and all that. So yeah, it's a great overall story. Like I say, it's really interesting to figure out morals and think about morals, which is something I love in films. So I think that the film succeeds in that way, and it's really interesting, and it's actually a good time to talk about them because this year there's a new film coming out, which is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which as I understand is continuing on this story. So I'll be excited. This time I might actually be going to the cinema to see one in the cinema, which would be great because it looks amazing. So I think it would be great to see them on the big screen. But a big recommendation from me for the original, this trilogy, sorry, not original, not the one in the 70s, this trilogy. If it's available to you, definitely watch it. I think it's a really fascinating story, and like I say, to think about, just how society, whichever society, interacts with its own members, with other societies. What do we do to each other? How do we treat each other? And it seems like such a simple question to answer, but these films show it can get very complex. Right. That will be all from me today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. It is the best way to support this channel. I know I mention that a lot, but that simply is the case for YouTube. Those are the things that really make the algorithm pop and, you know, make your video seen to more people. Leave a comment down below about anything you want to see, Planet of the Apes related, you know, original films, comparisons. I think it's based on a book. What about that? You know, how does all this go together? Are you looking forward to the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes? Title's getting even longer. Do you think that will hold up to this? Because I think it's a very beloved trilogy, and I fully agree. You know, they have to get it right, otherwise it's going to kind of tarnish these three films. So I do hope they get it right. But anything you want to say, put it down in the comments below. I'll thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one on Flying Wiener. Take care.